Today we're going to create a new ripple effect. This time we're going to make a radial ripple effect. I'm going to start off by creating a new HTML5 canvas and importing our background image to our stage. Once you fit your image to your stage, go ahead and rename your layer. I'm going to name mine background. I'm going to lock my layer so I don't mess it up. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to copy my frame to my new layer. That way my image is in the exact same location on the new layer, which I'm going to call wave 1. I'm going to click on my image and I'm going to convert it to a symbol that I'm going to call wave. Once I have my symbol, I'm going to double click on it to open it so that I'm inside of my wave and not on scene 1. Name my layer. I'm going to call it image so that it's different than the layer name on my scene 1. And I'm going to go to my oval tool and I'm going to click and hold on the oval tool so that I can get the oval primitive tool. Holding shift, I'm going to draw a small circle in the middle of my screen. And then I'm going to go back to my selection tool. The oval primitive is sort of like an object in that we can change things after it's drawn before it's finalized. I don't want to mess with start angle or end angle, but I do want to have an inner radius. So if I change that up to about 50, type that in, then there will be a small circle in the middle and it looks a little bit like a donut. I'm going to create a motion tween on my layer. I'm going to have that last about 100 frames, which means I need my image layer to also be 100 frames. I'm going to press F5 to insert a frame. Make sure my image layer is locked so that I don't mess it up. And then on my layer 2, which is going to be my shape, I'm going to use the free transform tool to resize my shape. I'm just going to resize that so that it's large enough to cover the whole image. If you notice that your wave is too large, because we actually used too small of a number, then we could double click to go inside of symbol 1 and then make our inner radius even larger. Maybe about 85% seems to be a good number, so I'm going to go back to my wave. I'm going to zoom out to about 50% so I can see the whole thing. Go back to free transform and hold shift so that it goes just outside the whole thing. You might need to use the arrows a little bit to nudge it over so that it's pretty even around the whole shape. Go back to frame 1, go back to 100%. Make sure that my shape starts about where I want it to. It's okay if it moves over a tiny bit like this. You'll not notice that in the end of your animation. So let's go ahead and put a mask on that so we can see it running. Looks pretty good. Maybe a little slow. We'll check it back on scene 1. If it ends up being too slow, maybe we could increase the speed by shortening it to somewhere around 60. So back on scene 1, if I just run this by pressing Control Enter, we'll get our preview. And we'll see that we don't see anything because our pixels line up exactly. So with your object selected, your wave, you're going to want the X and Y coordinates to be moved over just a little bit. So I recommend going up and right, up and left, or down and right, depending on your image, by just a little bit. Since mine is a radial image, it won't matter which direction I go, so I'm just going to go down and left. So I'm going to go down 2, so my 1 should become a 3. I'm going to go left 2, so my 1 should become a -1. Now that it's offset, when I run it, I should be able to see the wave go through my image. It does seem a little slow. So I'm going to go back to my wave in my library, and I'm going to slow that down to about 60. I'm going to highlight the frames on my bottom layer, and I'm going to remove them so that they're both the same length, 60 frames. Go back to scene 1, preview that again. That looks a little better. So I'm going to make my wave 1 layer 60 frames. So I'm going to insert a frame so that this duration lasts for 60 frames. Copy my 60 frames. Insert a new layer, probably about frame 11. I will paste and overwrite my frames. Make a third layer around 21. Paste and overwrite frames. And then make my background last a little bit longer than the whole thing. And now I should have 3 waves on my screen. Once everything looks good, we can save it. In my web design animate folder, I'm going to save this as radial ripple. And I'm going to go to my publish settings, my folder, and inside my website Animate folder, I want it to be called the same thing. Hit save. Publish will create my files for my website. Hit OK. Make sure we save those changes, our published settings. Switch over to Dreamweaver. If it's not still open from last time, open up your Animate index. Find the Radial Ripple HTML file we created. Drag that down to the bottom. Save our index. Upload our Animate folder. Then switch over to make sure this is uploaded to our website correctly. So let's go to our name in our Animate folder to check it, and we will see that it is working just fine on the website.